This is being billed as the world's largest battery rebate program, which for Australia, with our level of population compared to other countries in the world, I think is a credit to you two that you have come up with such a world-breaking scheme.
Well, credit to the minister.
Right. Credit to all of us.
Well, and a credit to the cabinet, right? Because the minister can put an argument, but it requires the prime minister and the cabinet to buy into. So having an effective minister helps a lot.
It's very Australian, punching above our weight, taking it to the world in the best way we can. So. Hello and welcome to the first episode of Take Charge. I'm James Hetherington, CEO of the Solar Battery Group, and today I'm joined by two leaders at the front line of Australia's clean energy transition. The Honourable Chris Bowen, Minister for Climate Change and Energy, and John Grimes, CEO of the Smart Energy Council. Thanks for joining me.
Pleasure. Congratulations on your new podcast, James. It's great.
Thank you very much. So, Minister, start off with, could you give me a quick overview of the new cheaper home battery scheme?
Sure. Well, I think we would all agree, James, that it's been a big missing piece in our renewable energy infrastructure. We're a leader in rooftop solar through the SRES scheme and other schemes, but we haven't had anything really to support storage. So this is really taking a successful scheme and applying it to batteries. We call it the cheaper home battery scheme, but it also applies to small businesses and community groups. And really it's taking that existing infrastructure. Yep. We did want to redesign the wheel and putting it on batteries, which means, in effect, the most important bottom line is typically the cost of a battery comes down 30% on the 1st of July.
Fantastic. And John, who is eligible to apply for this rebate?
Well, the great news is this really builds on the successful rooftop solar program. There are over 10 million Australians, 4 million households that have solar panels on their rooftops today. And the good news is that every single one of them is eligible for this scheme. So, Minister, congratulations. I mean, for the government to step out in a really well-designed, forward-looking scheme that is focused on one thing, cost of living. It has an environmental dividend, but it's about helping people with their power bills. That is really a massive, massive win.
Now, I know there's a lot of households out there and there's a lot of special rebates by state. Can we just confirm today that these rebates will be stackable?
Yeah, so the two states with the rebates really are New South Wales and Western Australia, and also, to a degree, the Northern Territory. Other states have had different loan schemes, etc., but the states with rebates at the moment are New South Wales and Western Australia. And before we announced this, I spoke to both of those ministers and we agreed that it would be stackable in principle. Now, of course, those state ministers have had to work through some details, and they'll have more to say. I'm not exactly sure when we're going to air, but even by the time we've been to air, maybe those state ministers will have released more details. But I can confirm absolutely it's stackable. So basically, we wanted the states to keep up with their effort, and obviously we don't want consumers to have to choose between which rebate are they going to go for. We want them both to apply, and that will definitely be the case. Again, there's a little bit of detail to come from the state ministers about exactly how they'll make our schemes compatible, but the good news is they absolutely will.
Fantastic. John and the Minister, can you outline how the government and the Smart Energy Council intend to work together to make sure that this rebate scheme is a large success?
Well, maybe if I could just say something first, Minister, and that is that I think this is another area really where congratulations are due, because often governments create programs in a bubble, and often the people that are creating the program don't have, we like to call it the solar face, not the cold face, experience of actually what it means on the ground. But the government's been really good in terms of seeking advice early and actually responding to the feedback. So that means that I think this sets the standard in terms of industry government collaboration to develop a scheme that is really world's first. I think it'll be a hugely successful program. Already the government has a very successful rooftop solar program. I think using that architecture is really smart. The consumer protections in that, products need to be fully tested before they're eligible. Installers need to be properly accredited before they can go forward. But taking that feedback and adjusting, congratulations. I think this is a model of collaboration, all focused on one thing, consumer safety and performance. And I think that's what we're going to get through this scheme.
Well, that's very kind of you to say, John. Thank you. But also it means a better scheme. So John and Smart Energy Council have been calling for a scheme like this for some time. To be fair, not the only ones. We are one of a broad group of people calling for a scheme like this, and we've been interested in a scheme like this. But it also means that we can produce a better scheme. When I first went to John and said, look, I think we're going to do this. I think, I'm getting support within the cabinet to do this. Now let's work together on design. That means, again, we don't have all the knowledge in Canberra. I'm not a battery installer. There are elements of the sector that I know more about, and other elements that I need more information on. So getting John and Wayne and SSC's feedback to something, you're doing it this way, how will that work, do you think? How will people respond to this? Is there anything we've missed here? Has really helped me and the department design a better scheme. And I think, the fact that we've put out the details and there's been lots of questions, but nobody has come forward and said, the government stuffed this bit up or that bit up, or they didn't even think about this. I've not had any of that feedback. I think that shows, that working together and collaborating and sharing thoughts, we've been able to get pretty much as close to a perfect scheme. You never get perfection. You always get people who maybe say, I might have done it this way or that way, a little bit different. But by and large, with a scheme of this size, the feedback has been very, very positive.
Great.
So cost of living was a big topic in the election and has been a big topic in the last sort of 24 months, really. Do you think this scheme has the ability to get families to get their electricity bills almost down to zero?
Well, in some instances, yes. I don't want to overpromise. Like, if you're a large family with a high energy use, and particularly teenagers, if you're anything like mine with the energy use of a small Pacific island, you're going to have an energy bill. But for many, many people, everyone will be able to reduce their bills. And for many people, maybe couples, maybe a retired couple, you can get your bill down to, very, very close to zero, if not zero, at least some of the quarters. On average, we think if you already have solar panels, a typical bill reduction would be about 1,100 by adding a battery. And if you're going for the package, if you don't have solar panels now, but you put solar panels and a battery in, we think closer to 2,300 a year. And of course, also importantly, much smaller savings, but savings for everyone. Yep. Even if you don't take up a battery, because if you're reducing peak demand off the grid, you're reducing the peak pricing off the grid, and everyone benefits from that. So it's a downward pressure on prices for everyone. But obviously, if you take up the battery, and to be honest, another reason for doing this is because many people put solar panels on when feed-in tariffs were high. Many people say, I don't get feed-in tariffs anymore. And my answer to that is, well, yes, and I can't really do much about that because feed-in tariffs aren't going to come back to what they were.
No.
The best thing to do is put in a battery so we can make it easier to get a battery.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that solar saves money. And people, those 4 million households, they know they've absolutely slashed their power bill by putting solar on. But solar's great when the sun's shining, right? So at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that's fabulous. But when you come home from work or school or uni at 6, 7 o'clock at night, solar's less helpful. This actually solves that problem. There's actually a problem on the grid of an excess of solar energy during the day. And so it's a grid problem and it's an individual problem. So batteries is the missing link. It lets you capture that energy at 2, 3 in the afternoon and time shift it, if you like, to 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. Now, that's at a time when you otherwise would have had to be actually buying very expensive electricity from the grid, and there was no way around that. That was kind of like the trap that you're in. This is about liberation. It's about freedom. It's about personal choice. It's about actually really slashing the power bills and closing the loop. And so I think that the impact of this is going to be quite profound. And I do see a future where people start to think about an electrification strategy where people could realistically have as a goal that they want to effectively tear up their electricity bill. Now, as the Minister says, every situation is different, and so that's not a universal outcome, but it may be for some people. People want to actually transition away from gas cooktop, from gas heating, space heating, or for gas hot water, and actually make that electric. And so suddenly you're not just tearing up your electricity bill, you're tearing up your gas bill as well. And then, of course, you've got your car in the garage. Well, how great to capture the sun off your roof and actually maybe put some pressure on your employer to put a solar system at work so you actually charge during the day, and then you can tear up your petrol bill as well. So this is about massive cost of living implications. For self-funded retirees, people who have a fixed amount of money, they don't know how long they're going to live for. They don't know. They're really exposed to kind of that fluctuating electricity price. This is about certainty. I think it's a real winner.
Minister, tell me, do you have any specific benchmarks for you to deem this rebate scheme a success? What does success look like?
Well, I mean, I guess a couple of things, James. Firstly, we estimate or forecast it'll support 1.1 million batteries between now and 2030.
Yep.
That'd be a good outcome. If we exceed that, that's great. But, that's basically what we think. I think success looks like that. I think success looks like a smooth rollout. I'll take this opportunity to say to the sector, and I know 99.9% of the sector agrees with me, let's get this right, guys. I mean, we want to roll out batteries fast, but we also want to roll out batteries responsibly and safely, and we are going to keep the checks and balances and the accreditation, and you can only use a battery on the list, you can only use a certified installer. All that is very important because we will lose community support if we cut corners. And there'll be plenty of people out there, deniers and delayers and political opponents, who will be, hoping this scheme goes wrong, and they'll be very quick to say, look, this is another pink bats. We're not going to let any of that happen. This is a highly regulated sector for a region, because there's a lot that can go wrong. So we regulate it very closely. Those regulations will continue. But within that, let's work together to roll it out fast, but roll it out sensibly and safely. And that's success too. That is success. And then all those naysayers who say, look, this is all terrible, they'll be proven wrong. I'm quite confident.
James, the other thing I think about is that you put a solar system in as a single person. That does something, but it doesn't do very much. You put 4 million solar systems in, that starts to really help. You then back up with over 1 million batteries. So here's my challenge to everybody: how quickly can we get to 1 million batteries deployed in Australia? Because it's going to have a massive impact on households, but it's actually going to take a pressure off the grid and reduce the cost of electricity for everybody, not just those people who have solar batteries. When we modelled this, we found that could be up to $16 billion over the life of the scheme. That's a massive amount of money that doesn't have to be paid by ordinary Australians. So for me, yes, get it right, get everyone trained up, understanding the scheme, but then let's go for it. And so I think that collectively we can feel a bit powerless when it comes to climate action. There's kind of nothing that I can do. Well, here's something, by combining them, actually you can do something. And with millions of other Australians, you're doing something. The other note is, Australia leads the world in this transformation. Actually, Australia did rooftop solar when other places did big solar farms and commercial and industrial. It means we're the gold medal winner. We're actually out in front. And so we're actually learning things about the power of this combination here that have global significance and implications. So I think it's fantastic.
Do you think bigger is going to be better under this scheme for batteries?
I mean, my advice to people is that mostly if you're looking to time shift from 2 in the afternoon till 6, 7 o'clock at night, you probably don't need that big a battery. And so there are self-funded retirees that might only need a 6, 7 kilowatt hour battery to achieve that. But also, the bigger battery you have, the less hard it's going to work. And for a lot of people, aren't just 1 or 2 people in the house, there are a tribe of people in the house. So a bigger battery is going to be the right answer for them. So my advice to people is, buy the biggest battery you can afford. This rebate is a one-time deal. So it's not as if you can trickle it out and come back for a second bite. Get the biggest battery you can afford. But even a small battery is better than no battery at all. So don't think that because it's, you're only getting a small battery, that doesn't help. It does help. And so...
Yeah, I'll just add one thing there, basically to agree with John. You asked at the outset who's eligible. Well, everyone's eligible. We thought about whether we means test this or put requirements and restrictions on, and I just wanted to make it basically as available as possible, very light restrictions, 5 kilowatt hours to 50 kilowatt hours, that's plenty of range, etc., not means tested. The only constraint we put on it is you do it once. You get one bite of the cherry. And that's really designed to encourage that conversation, as John just said. We don't want people putting in a small battery and then 12 months later thinking, I want a bigger one. I mean, we've all been on that journey, right? But with this scheme, we really want people to think about with their installers, what's the right battery for me? And let's do it once and do it properly. That's the only restriction we put on. Millionaires can get it. People on low incomes can get it. We wanted, it's in the country's best interest that as many people as possible take up the rebate. But do it right, do it once. So work with the installer work with the client, and please recommend the best possible battery for that person because they'll only be able to get the rebate once per household.
So is this the first building block in a longer term sort of environment strategy? Where do you think the logical next step will be?
Well, I think it's an important part of our entire policy, and the building you grow. So the SRES was, obviously, even though it was controversial at the time, the right policy for the time to get the critical mass of solar panels up. Now that we've got that, now it's the logical next step to extend it to batteries. And when you think about it, we become one of the most important battery markets in the world. Why? Because we have such high rooftop solar and low battery penetration. So the gap is so big. Yeah. We've got 1 in 3 houses has a battery, 1 in 4, I'll say that again. 1 in 3 houses has solar panels, 1 in 40 has a battery. So that gap between 1 in 40 and 1 in 3 is massive. And so that really makes us one of the most important battery markets in the world with this rebate policy, I think. And it's part of our journey to 82% renewables. It's just part of that continuing build-up of good policy that we've been trying to give the country for the last 3 and a bit years.
James, I'll just add something small to that, and that is to say that, we know that the energy plan, as the energy experts are saying, that distributed renewable energy could make up to 50% of the whole energy network in Australia, by 2050, right? So, we are really forging ahead. So it's not just about the big solar farms, the big wind farms, the big batteries, the pumped hydro. That's all super important. That's got to continue. But we get two routes to success here, and we should not underestimate the impact of that action by ordinary Australians, and combined, that is significant. So I think that it really complements the government's overall agenda in terms of where they want to go with 82% renewable energy by 2030.
John, why was championing a national battery rebate such a strategic priority for the Smart Energy Council?
It was evident to me. I saw how solar had changed the life of ordinary people. And it was so evident to me that we had a really competitive battery market. We modelled this. There are over 77 different batteries available on the market today, and I think as a result of this announcement, we'll see many more. So it's a very competitive landscape. We're also seeing the cost of batteries coming down quite significantly. That's because the world is transitioning to electric vehicles. And the batteries that power electric vehicles are exactly the same batteries that are in your home battery system. So as you get economies of scale, you're doing this on mass scale, the price comes down. So all of a sudden, something that in the past, people thought, battery, maybe in the future sometime, now they're saying 30% off where the price is today. That's a no-brainer, right? That's a trigger point for action. And so when I saw those things coming together, I said, look, if there's one thing that I wanted to leave as a bit of a personal legacy, I think to unlock the power of the tens of thousands of people who work in every country town, in every community right across the country, to activate mums and dads. They've got small contracting businesses, they've got an apprentice, a couple of vans, to actually get out there. We can turn this on instantly, we can actually transition rapidly, and we can do it in a way that saves money and gives us the environmental outcomes. So for me, it was a no-brainer.
This is being billed as the world's largest battery rebate program, which for Australia, with our level of population compared to other countries in the world, I think is a credit to you two that you have come up with such a world-breaking scheme.
Well, credit to the minister.
Right. Credit to all of us.
Well, and a credit to the cabinet, right? Because the minister can put an argument, but actually it requires the prime minister and the cabinet to buy into. So having an effective minister helps a lot.
It's very Australian, punching above our weight, taking it to the world in the best way we can. So,
but also, as I said before, that's possible because of our rooftop solar penetration. So, it doesn't make much sense if you don't have strong rooftop solar to come along with the battery policy. Because we've got those 1 in 3 houses with rooftop solar coming along and saying, right now, next step is batteries, and there's such interest out there. I'll share this fact with you and our listeners for the first time. 60,000 people have looked at the Department of Climate Change's website, my department's website, since we put the battery details up. That is a huge increase in the number of people, you'll be shocked to learn, who look at the Department of Climate Change and Energy website. I know
people spend a lot of time on those
millions of people
sites,
normally spontaneously look. No. In all seriousness, 60,000 views just in the last 2 weeks that it's been up. I think the sector's going to be. I know anecdotally, I'm sure you're experiencing it, James. Interest is way up, quotes are way up,
very much so.
Calls are way up. There's probably still people saying, I'm not going to book in until after 1 July. I want to just see that the government delivers this first. But the interest is huge. There's going to be waiting lists for a battery, and that's going to cause some frustrations. But that's also, I see, as a good thing. It's managing strength. It means the interest is so high. And as I said, while we want to see it rolled out quickly, we don't want to see any safety corners cut. We'll clamp down on that like a ton of bricks if we see it. We want to work with the sector to ensure a smart, safe, sensible rollout of batteries.
Totally.
Tell me, with the widespread home battery adoption that is going to happen over the next sort of 6, 12 months and up to 2030, do you think it's going to move the needle far enough, fast enough to make us meet our energy targets that we have been set?
No. I was just going to say, you ain't seen nothing yet. I know the power of Australians in terms of wanting to embrace the technology, and I know the capability to deliver. Minister, I think it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a big part of our plan. I mean, it's part of it. It's not the only thing we're doing, of course. We've got our capacity investment scheme for the big stuff, for the utility scale stuff. That's very important. We're working with the states on planning reforms to make sure that they go through as quickly as is prudent. But John mentioned this before. One of the big agendas for the second term of this government, we started on the first term, but we didn't really have time to finish the job, of course, is what we call consumer-owned energy, distributed energy, call it what you will. It's turning consumers into prosumers, producing and consuming, whether it is the battery in your garage or the battery in your driveway or VPP. We've got a lot of work to do. Reverse charging for car batteries, getting higher take-up of VPPs. Under this program, you have to be VPP enabled, but you don't actually have to sign on to a VPP. But I want people to basically start thinking about signing on, so that if it's in their interest, they will. So it's a big part of that big picture.
Becoming a minister, I'm sure one of the main drivers is making a difference, making a difference in the world, making a difference in your local community. Is this home battery program going to be your legacy? Well,
part of it, I hope. When I finish in this job, which is some way off yet, is my intention. But I look back and say, well, we did it. And I've got to say, to be honest, against a lot of doubters. I mean, in the media, it's the easiest thing to do to sit back and go, this is not going to work, this is too hard. I call it the Stadler and Waldorf approach to energy policy for those who are similar age to me and, grew up watching the Muppets. Stadler and Waldorf sitting up in the audience going, this is terrible, it's all too hard. Well, yeah, okay, that's easy, guys. Anyone can do that. We're doing it. And we will do it. And we have plenty of challenges, plenty of headwinds, plenty of obstacles. Well, nothing comes easy that's worth doing. This is worth doing and we come up against it. So... and we find ways around those obstacles or over them or under them or whatever it takes and get the job done. And I think this is part of that. So yes, this is part of the legacy. The bigger legacy is to say we took a really dysfunctional energy policy. We took a part of policy which has destroyed multiple prime ministers and ministers. And Australia was a pariah in the world. We were ignored in international conferences. Now we're trying to host, and I think we'll host the COP. That shows we've restored leadership internationally, restoring it domestically, taking this really difficult policy area and turning it into a winner for Australia.
Fantastic.
Hey James, people at home, they might not know what COP is, the Conference of the Parties. It's after the Olympics and the World Cup. It's the third largest global event. And Team Australia are rallying to try and put a bid in to host the COP at the end of next year in 2026. And wouldn't it be great at that point to unlock the 10 million Australians that have solar on their rooftop today that are going to get batteries, and the 10 million more Australians that want solar and batteries just haven't been given the signal yet, to actually then celebrate that in front of the world to say, actually, this is a moment of hope. It's a moment of individual action. It's about celebrating our success and doing it in a uniquely Australian way.
Thank you. The Solar Battery Group has been around for 10 years. We have been passionate about batteries for a decade now. Thank you for supercharging the battery industry. It needed this injection of oxygen to really get the batteries into more homes. So,
James, I know that a big focus of your work is that home electrification, the holistic journey. More power to you. I think this Solar Battery Group's leadership here has been important, and you've got to give people a vision. You've got to take away the doubt and the fear, and you need to lead them through a transition that succeeds for them. And more of us that's doing that, I think, has got to be a good thing.
Well, totally. I mean, one of the unintended byproducts of this process is, over the years I've had this job, which is, I guess coming up to 5 years in the climate portfolio, 3 of them in government. I've got to know the sector very well, and John and the leaders and many of the companies. But over the last month or so, in explaining this policy, I've been to many companies and just been constantly reminded of the passion and the professionalism and the dedication. So you guys at Solar Battery Group, I was with NRG in Adelaide last week. Don't want to start singling people out, but Penrith Solar, for example, all these guys are representative of a wonderful sector, of really committed, passionate teams, and I know that we're in safe hands with this rollout of professionals. And again, as I've said multiple times, let's get this right, guys. And I know that between us and the Clean Energy Regulator and the infrastructure to regulate the sector, but more importantly, even the sector itself, we've got this. So let's get on with it.
Totally.
John and Chris, thank you for your time today, for sharing your thoughts. Thank you for your listeners. Until next time, take charge. So there you have it, guys, from two of the most important people in our industry, the Federal Minister Chris Bowen and John Grimes from the Smart Energy Council. Two key takeaways I took from today's podcast. One, make sure you get a qualified installer to install your battery. And two, make sure you only get one crack at this rebate. So make sure you make a wise choice and get the right battery for you. And take charge.